What's up guys, my name is Ace, and welcome back to another episode of Maps Exposed. This is the series where I cover all of the lines of sight, secret spots, hotspots, as well as the most common spawn points on every map in Black Ops 4 multiplayer. In today's episode, we're going to be covering Seaside, and first up, as always, let's have a look at the common hotspots. These are the areas where enemies will tend to linger, and if you're looking for a fight, these are the areas you'll typically want to check. So first up, the most common areas and choke points that you'll find people are going to be within the church entrance area, as well as in and around the yellow building. These two areas almost always have people in them or traveling through them, and it's where most of the action tends to go on this map in most linear team-based game modes. Now, of course, in a game mode like Control, for instance, these areas aren't going to be nearly as hot because the control points are on the top and bottom lanes as you're looking at the map right now. But generally speaking, in like TDM or Domination, this is where you'll be finding enemies. I did also want to point out another hotspot, or more so choke point, that's quite popular in a lot of game modes, and that's this stairs area right here. It's very common that you'll have people using this area to get towards the middle of the map, or sometimes they'll even linger in the stairs area and try to just get a nice line of sight towards people that are in the middle of the map. So if you're mid-map, always be aware of these stairs. Aside from that, in Domination and TDM at least, you typically find people just using the top and bottom lanes as flank routes. Most of the fighting tends to happen in the middle of the map. So now that we have the hotspots covered, let's start getting into the map and having a look at the lines of sight, as well as any other sort of secret spots I can share with you guys. So first up, I just wanted to point out on this side of the map over here where the Domination Flag is, a lot of people still don't seem to know that there's this side of the map that you can flank on, and this is also great for opening routes. If you can get yourself up to this area here and you're crouched, you'll be completely hidden, but when you stand up, you get an excellent line of sight on that piece of cover right there, which is very common in a lot of game modes, especially right off the opening route. So this is often just a free kill for you if you've got a great long-range gun like a sniper rifle or an LMG or something. You can pick those people off very, very easily, and it's also great for getting long shot medals. Now, another thing from this side of the map over here, if you're approaching the A flag and you expect somebody's up on the stairs there and you want to get a good flank on, what you can do is if you drop down to these rocks here, you can actually climb up to this area right there. So they might see you drop down, they might think that you're dead, but you got plenty of time to get over here, and there you go. You got yourself on the flank, and that's just an excellent way to take people off guard, because most of the time when they see somebody jump off the ledge there, they think they're going to be dead. Now, if you're over on this side of the map and you're expecting enemies to come up to the opposite area to where I'm standing right here, the mirror of that spot, one little alternative you can do is jump up onto this area here and crouch, and that just gives you a slightly different angle. Part of your body is sticking out on the side, but it's not a place they normally expect you to be. Usually, they're going to look for you standing out in the open here or standing behind this piece of cover right here, so you can often take them off guard if you're trying to defend this lane. Keep in mind, this area is symmetrical, so you can do the same over in this area right here. You do have to break the glass, but once you do that, there you go. Great line of sight towards that way. Now, also right on this corner here, I just wanted to point out for a lot of people that didn't know, you can get a line of sight to that lane there, which isn't a super common lane, but sometimes the spawns will just be forcing people to come out in this direction, and you can pick people off from here, and they usually won't know what hit them because they don't think that anybody can get a line of sight on them from there. Also, kind of a cool way to flank if you happen to be ruined and you have your grapple charged is you can actually just use your grapple to come across this corner. And for the people that are camping up into this area right here, waiting for you to come through these areas like that, they often won't catch that. They might hear you come around there, but it is a great way to flank. And this can also be used going the other way if you wanted to do that. All you have to do is catch your grapple on that lamppost right there, and there you go. Gets you around this corner quite nicely. Now, inside this building right here, this is a control point as well as a hard point, so oftentimes you have to lock this down, and sometimes you'll have enemies that are going to be flooding through the stairs here, and a great way to take them off guard, if you happen to be using battery or you happen to have a grenade on your class, you can actually throw it right through here, stick it to that side there, and all of your little clusters will drop down into the stairs, and it will kill anybody that's trying to come through this area. Or if they maybe are camping up here, sometimes they'll do that. They'll camp up here and just wait for you, and you know that they're there, and you happen to have one of these grenades ready to go. It's quite simple to just throw one up there and get the kill on them. As a reverse of that, if you happen to be attacking the people that are in this area, this one's not quite as effective because it doesn't really target a specific spot. If you time it right, you can actually jump over the fence here, throw the cluster grenade through, or frag grenade for that matter, and there you go. Once again, the clusters will drop down here, and at the very least, you should cause enemies to start to scramble, or you might hurt them, and then when you come in with your gun, they'll be a lot easier to kill. Moving on to the mid-map area, I just wanted to point out for those of you guys that might be new to the game and didn't know this yet, because it doesn't look obvious at first sight, you can mantle up into this window quite easily, actually. It doesn't look like you should be able to do that, but absolutely you can do that, and I use that all the time. A couple other interesting things that I like to use on this map is when the enemies are coming through the church area here and I'm approaching their spawn from this direction, one thing I like to do is possibly jump up here to get a bit of a different angle on the people there because they'll expect you to be standing down in this area. Also, you can jump up onto the tank from right here, and you can use that for cover to take those people out. You can even strafe down over here onto the rubble, crouch, and it's just a bit of a different angle that they don't normally expect. Also, if you happen to have enemies that are sitting or laying on top of that tank over there, which is very, very common in a lot of modes, you'll get people that just lay down there and camp there basically all game. It can be a little bit difficult to pick them off if you just come around the corner because they're going to be pre-aiming that, and therefore they will have the advantage in that gunfight. The best way to take them out, and this is so simple, is simply mantle up onto this statue right here, and there you go. Perfect line of sight on those guys laying on the tank. You'll win this gunfight more often than not because they're not normally looking back this far. They're normally aiming downwards into that choke point there. Similarly, if you wanted to, you could back off here and just use the stairs to get a line of sight on the people there, and this gives you a bit more control over how much of your body you want to expose to them. As for coming from the other direction, if there's enemies up in the yellow building right there, which is a very common hotspot like I said earlier, a great way to challenge them, instead of coming to this spot here, which is exactly where they'll expect and where they'll often be pre-aiming in order to take you out, all you have to do is back off a little bit and you can expose exactly as much of your head as you'd like, and then you can crouch to take cover really easily. This is a much better way to challenge those people if you happen to be on the ground over here. So don't go up to this area, come up to this area first and you can check that. You can also back off and kind of check this spot over here, which is another relatively common spot for people to be, but it's not quite as good as just covering the window. Now, this next one is a little bit crazy, a little bit out there, and definitely a very, very situation-dependent spot. You'll probably never actually get a kill from this spot. I just wanted to point out that it's possible. If you mantle to this area here, you can see a little bit towards this side of the map. Enemies could potentially be over in that corner right there, or you might be able to catch a glimpse of them through this little area right there. I'll just show you in a second here what that spot actually is, so you have some context behind that. But like I said, extremely situation-dependent. You'll be able to see them right through this little crack here. So if they happen to be like standing in this area, just waiting to shoot somebody there, you might be able to pick them off through there, especially in hardcore game modes. If it's not hardcore, normally they'll probably be able to react and get out of your line of sight very, very quickly. Now, if you're approaching this area here, the Sea Domination area, and your enemies are still spawning down low there, instead of coming around this corner to check where this ATV is, there's often people sitting up there or in the window. What I like to do instead is simply jump up on the van and then come all the way up to this area here, and that just gives you a little alternative, and it's a place they don't expect you to be, so you'll usually win this gunfight against them. It's not a place I'll normally linger, but it's more so a check spot as I'm pushing up towards their spawn. I'll just have a look, see if anyone's there, and if not, I will move on. Now, getting all the way back in the Sea Domination spawns, sometimes you get spawn trapped back here and enemies will be hanging out in this building and you just know they're coming. If they've just killed you, for instance, and you respawn right here and you want to challenge them, what you can do is you can jump up here and then just strafe over on top of this little rock, and there you go. That gives you a great line of sight into this building, and you'll often be able to pick them off before they have any idea what hit them. So finally, one last spot I have to share for you guys is another spot for when you're coming out of the Sea Domination spawns. You often do get spawn trapped down here, and one place people really like to be, this is a place I really like to be when I'm pushing people back into the sea spawns, is up on this tank here, because it gives you a great vantage point as I come around that corner, and you can pick them off. I've gotten so many kills doing this, but there's an excellent counter for people that are doing that, and that is to simply come off of spawn and back off a little bit behind this tank. From here, you actually get a nice clean line of sight on top of that tank area, and you can pick those people off that are doing what I always do. Little alternative to that, if you wanted to, you could jump up on this railing and crouch. That'll give you basically the same line of sight, but here you can also stand up and see if somebody's down low in front of the tank right there. So finally, this leaves us with the most common spawn points that you'll find on Seaside for linear team-based game modes. Of course, this doesn't apply to free-for-all and doesn't apply to modes like Hardpoint. And first up, let's have a look at the primary spawn points. These are the spawn points you'll find most of the time if there's not really any pressure put on the spawns. These are the spawns you'll run into more often than not, and it's very basic and no surprises whatsoever here on Seaside. We've got several spawn points you can spawn at on either end of the map, and they're just on the ends of the map. You aren't going to get a mid-map spawn or anything like that. These are your standard primary spawns, exactly where you'd expect them to be. As for the secondary spawn points on Seaside, these ones are typically pushed a little bit further up on the map, but you'll notice there aren't any real mid-map spawns. With these spawn points, you'll typically see these if your teammates are all pushed really far up, so it kind of anchors your spawn forward, or you might see some of these if you have an enemy that pushes directly into your primary spawn zone, and your team is also unable to flip to the other side of the map. What I've noticed most of the time, though, is if somebody pushes right into your primary spawn area, at that point on this map, it usually just triggers a full-on spawn flip, so now you start spawning at their primary spawns. And with that, that's going to wrap it up for today's episode of Maps Exposed on Seaside. As always with the series, I'd like to know in the comment section below, what do you guys think about this map? Do you think Seaside is a good map or a bad map, somewhere in between? Just let me know what you're thinking and why. Personally, I like Seaside quite a bit. I think it's a great competitive map. You've got really predictable choke points as well as common camping spots that are easy to predict and counter as well. And just in general, I like the way that the map tends to flow and play out. So I would actually say for me, Seaside is one of my favorite maps so far in Black Ops 4. Also, if you guys have missed any of the previous episodes of Maps Exposed, I will leave a link to the playlist down below. If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.